Hello and welcome to my show. My name is David Dalle, and this week we are privileged to have Canadian composer Constantine Caravassilis joining me to present his most ambitious work to date, from Sappho's Lyre. And there are actual several works which Caravassilis composed based on Sappho and Sapphic-inspired poems in collaboration with author, poet, and classicist Geoffrey Dubin. The largest, which we'll hear today, is a multimedia cantata for large chamber ensemble based on Sappho's two complete surviving poems, the Hymn to Aphrodite and He Appears to Me, Equal to the Gods. And I should have Constantine here. Hello.
Hello, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. It's a great to have you on my show once again. And,
and I'm thrilled to be back after, we've done a show together around 2013 with the CD of the Book of Rhapsodies and Book of Fantasias.
Yes.
Christina playing. Yes, fantastic.
Yeah, so long ago.
yeah.
This new work, this is your largest work to date, isn't it? From Sappho's Lyre.
Well, there are other orchestral works that are maybe not as long, but they're just larger in terms of instrumentation. But this is, I guess you're right, it's the most ambitious. It took a long time to write, and it is.
Well, tell us about the work from Sappho's Lyre. I mean, it's looking at. I'll post a link to there's a couple of websites from Orchid Classics that release this recording, and your own website. There's just so much written up about it.
Well, for listeners that are interested in learning about the background of the work, if you go to my website, which is caravassilis.ca, you can find 50-page prospectus about the work that includes the poetry, other kinds of information, the history, and, of course, the biographies of so many of my colleagues who contributed by playing. And, of course, the patriarch of this project, Geoffrey Dubin, a New York author. Well, I don't know. There's a wealth of information. I wouldn't know where to start, but I'm just going to start by telling you that writing this work and the others from the CD, because this is a double CD project, was just inherently fun. You see how people in this so-called, postmodern society seem to be stumbling across so many obstacles. And in most cases, at least the way I perceive things, they're trying to add years to their lives. They're running to the gym and they go and fasting and different kinds of diets, and they take supplements and they meditate just to, add years to their lives. And in some way, I find the creative process of this piece so, fun, exhilarating, fulfilling, that in the end I feel like instead of adding years to my life, I added life to my years, because this took a long, long time to do. So you might consider this kind of a placebo effect, but it does work, and now there's a tangible result, and the production was fantastic. If I was asked to, pack this entire work into a couple of sentences, I would say that in essence, I wanted this work to, it is a hybrid already, because I'm mixing ancient Greek tragedy, ballet, and opera. But in essence, I wanted it to be also a hybrid of sort of the Apollonian restraint with the Dionysian frenzy. So it's a kind of yin and yang of the culture and the region of this world that I have compositionally submerged myself. And I tried to mirror this to the very best of my ability.
Well, this is merging so many different elements, I believe, of your personality. Your Greek background, your interest in literature and history, and tying it all in with music. Because you said you were very much inspired by the book by Geoffrey Dubin. So it's a very big book, The Lesbian Lyre, Reclaiming Sappho for the 21st Century. Book he wrote, and it came out in 2016. And I looked at. I'm getting a copy. I'm going to read it, but it's about 900 pages. I realized with 900 pages, I was not going to have time to read it before today's show. But,
back in 2008, I had written a smaller work for mezzo-soprano, flute, and piano called Sappho de Mytilène. And this was using translations from the ancient Greek of fragments of Sappho's poetry, translated into modern Greek first by Odysseus Elitis, a Nobel Prize Greek poet, and then from that into French. So I felt, it's one of my most widely performed chamber music pieces, and that's fine and well, but I felt that the poetry was starting to lose some of its essence from the ancient Greek. And in Dubin's work, I found that merely because in ancient Greek poetry there are so many meanings enveloped in each word that he was able to capture this magnificently in the English language. So I think that you made a little bit of a typo advertising this interview, because I'm actually using the ancient Greek and Dubin's translations throughout the piece.
Yeah, it's more the spoken word that I believe is the translation.
Yes, I used his voice for the narrations, and this is the original language. Yeah. I should tell for your listeners, who was Sappho, because maybe a few people don't realize that we're dealing with the best poet that has ever been.
Yeah, it's certainly it's like say Sappho. It goes back to at least 2008 when you first composed something. So you've had a long history, interest, fascination with Sappho. Yeah. So tell us about Sappho and your connection to her.
Well, Sappho is an archaic Greek poet from Eresos or Mytilene, present-day Lesbos island. And she was known for her lyric poetry, written to be sung while accompanied by music. And as you mentioned, we don't really know what this music would have sounded like. But in ancient times, Sappho was widely regarded as one of the greatest lyric poetess. Was given the names such as like the 10th Muse or the Poetess. And of course, most of her poetry is now lost, but what is extant has mostly survived in fragmentary form. So that we only have the hymn to Aphrodite and Equal to the Gods that are certainly complete. So now, as well as lyric poetry, ancient commentators claimed that Sappho wrote elegiac and iambic poetry. So there are 3 epigrams attributed to Sappho that are extant, but these are Hellenistic imitations of Sappho style. So again, it's not exact. And of course, very little is known about her life. We do know that she was from a wealthy family in the island of Lesbos, and though her parents' names are uncertain, but some ancient sources say that she had 3 brothers, Charaxos, Larichos, Evrigios. And 2 of them are mentioned in the Brothers poem discovered in 2014. Anyway, she lived in Lesbos, but she was exiled to Sicily around 600 BC, and she might have continued to work until around 570 BC. So very, very, very ancient poetry. And according to the legend, she killed herself by leaping from the Leucadian cliffs due to her love for the ferryman Phaon. So prolific poet, probably composed around 10,000 lines, and her poetry was well known and greatly admired through much of antiquity. There's a lot of research on her work still been going on in major universities and whatnot. And she was always also among the canon of the 9 lyric poets. You can think of this something like the group of 7. And she was very highly esteemed by the scholars of Hellenistic Alexandria. And her poetry is still considered extraordinary. I consider it extraordinary. And it does continue to influence other writers. So beyond her poetry, she's well known as a symbol of love, desire between women, and the English word Sapphic and lesbian deriving from her name and that of her home island. And the story goes on and on and on. From that's just the beginning. And from there, fast forward 2,600 years until you get to my music, there's quite a bit. So we need another 5 shows for me to, dwell into this and give you descriptions of each movement. Oh my God, that would be, huge.
Yeah, because the total of 4 works on this double CD, 4 works, all either with poetry of Sappho or Sapphic-inspired poetry as well. Yeah. And but this main piece from Sappho's Lyre, 17 individual movements, and there's 2 big parts, and it covers, I believe, the complete poem, Hymn to Aphrodite, and Equal to the Gods. So both these the two most complete works of surviving works of Sappho, because most of what other remains are just fragments. For 2,600 years is a long time for anything like this to survive. Tell me about the structure of this work.
Structure.
How did I mean you had this source material, this inspiration, this fascination has been around for a long time, and how did it become this work?
Well, like I said, there's Greek tragedy, there's ballet, and there's opera. That will become quite apparent if you just read the titles and the subtitles for each movement. And though I'm going to explain a little bit of that, but I'll give you some other influences later on. I don't know how long this conversation is going to go on for. But first of all, I looked at the structure of Greek tragedy, of course, which is characterized by a set of conventions. So there's a typical tragedy usually begins with a prologue, in which one or more characters introduce the drama and explain the background of the ensuing story. Then the prologue is followed by the parodos, which is the entry of the characters, after which the story unfolds through 3 or more episodes. And then the episodes are interspersed by stasima. So those are choral interludes explaining or commenting on the situation developing in the play. And the episode is usually interaction between characters and the chorus. And then the tragedy ends with the exodus, which is the conclusion of the story. So then, elements of Greek tragedy are interspersed throughout the 17 movements, and then we do have movements that are named after ballet. So in the overall form, I've included 4 movements that reflect ancient Greek tragedy, 3 movements depicting Western ballet, and 6 movements influenced by opera. And you'll see that a third movement is a double aria. So I took the structure of an aria of an operatic work, and I doubled everything in it, including the voice. So there's 2 soloists. This hybrid form further details the use of a lot of things, but Byzantine-inspired hymnology, as well as other quotes, including 2 19th, 20th century Northern Aegean demotic songs that are, of course, have modified, and again, using the original poetry. And I guess this all is an overall, quintessentially Greek mosaic, this overall architectural plan of the work. But there's so many additional characteristics that are native to this work. I mean, you'll find that the very opening is just 2 notes that are played on crystal glasses that are a major second apart. And this is all over the place. And then the melody that ensues with the tenor, again, is, transformed and transposed. It's all over the place, and you have to look for it.
Well, that's Sorry, that's something that really struck me in this work. Is that it reminded me of Philip Glass's opera Akhenaten, and not because it sounds like Philip Glass. The music doesn't sound like Philip Glass, but it's just that in that opera, I mean, it's an opera it takes place in ancient Egypt, and like ancient Greece, we know even less about the actual music, what actual music sounded like in ancient Greece. Ancient Egypt. But he just the using his modern contemporary forms and orchestra and soloist, it really evokes ancient Egypt and really almost transports me. I think it almost, I can believe that this is what ancient Egypt sounded like. And I find it similar in this work that it really evokes the sense of ancient Greeks, and I can believe they are transported 2,600 years ago. And right from that very start, like I say, right from those 2 notes played on those crystal idiophones. It's right from and that, I guess maybe that at least subconscious that it was you're really trying to evoke ancient Greeks.
Absolutely, I am familiar with the work, Philip Glass, but I will give you the real inspiration here. When I was much younger, I had a couple of master classes with Osvaldo Holidov. Do you know Holidov's music?
I don't believe so. No.
Well, if not, it's going to be a huge discovery for you, because I regard him as one of the greatest living composers. He's an Argentinian Jew living in the U.S., He is currently professor of composition at the College of the Holy Cross, and he's had commissions by major organizations. Anyhow, he wrote a piece called Oceana that was recorded for Deutsche Grammophon.
Sorry, excuse me. Golojov.
Yeah.
Of course, Osvaldo Golojov. Sorry, I misheard the name. Yes, of course.
There you go.
Yes.
So Yeah. So I described this project to him years ago, and I had no idea that I was actually going to be approached by somebody who would link me to a New York-based arts organization, a nonprofit that financed the project. But I did have an idea for what I wanted to do with it, and I did speak to, as a student at the time, to Osvaldo, and he said, well, I think that you're describing Oceana, so, go get the CD and listen to this work. I mean, my music sounds nothing like Oceana or Osvaldo's music at all, but it's just a source of inspiration. But there are so many elements that I could speak beyond. I mean, I told you about the form, but I don't know if you caught the Dies Irae theme at the beginning of the work.
Yes.
Where you didn't, did you? Well, there's a triumphant entry of the famed Dies Irae theme, sounding atop of the aesthetic, the very first movement. And this is very symbolic, and the symbolism here. And right after we've gone through the whole history of humanity in the section preceding it, is that even of the day of wrath, even if all that there is, as we know it, falls apart, this will not shake the power of the god of Aphrodite, because the first half of the work is hymn to Aphrodite is trying to evoke her attention, basically, and this is what the music is trying to do also. So to carry the idea forward, the choir continues by singing the work Athanata, which means immortal Aphrodite, on the four notes of the Dies Irae theme. So you can see the symbolism here.
Yes, it's amazing. And also your choice of the voices and that you're trying to reflect the complexity of Sappho the person, the poet, I believe. Mm-hmm. Like I mean, obviously in starting 19th century, she kind of lent the name to the idea of lesbians and same sex among women. But she was more complex than that. Had both male and female attractions.
Yeah. So the general consensus is actually wrong. So you'd have to look at the scientific findings, the analysis that are in serious books to know that it's neither nor. It's perhaps somewhere in between. And in fact, the Jeffrey's book, The Lesbian Lyre, lesbian means the island of Lesbos, not lesbian as the sexual orientation. Although, of course, it depicts that as well, because in the modern world, when you say, Sappho, you immediately have the connection of her being gay, basically. Yeah. And so, on all accounts, this is considered to be gay poetry. Well, it's absolutely not, because it refers to many other things as well as love between two women. So my approach to that was basically leaving that part out and trying to depict the poetry word by word, and then the overall meaning as a background. And then, bringing in all of my influences, because there's further influences and interests that include, scientific things, mostly modern, and more specifically the use of fractals, quantum theory, brain studies, and as you know, everything that relates to psychoacoustics and the condition of synesthesia. And then we have what is rooted in Hellenic mythology, if you will. For example, I'm sure that you know that all the 9 muses, and each being a patron and goddess of one of the arts. So Calliope, the goddess of epic poetry, and Terpsichore, the goddess of dance, and Asterpe, the goddess of flutes and music and so forth. But their father was Zeus, of course, because he was profitable with his seed, but their mother was one of the first 12 of the Titans, and her name was Mnemosyne. Simply the Greek word for memory. Think of the word mnemonic. So essentially there, the Greeks are saying what Joseph Campbell calls public dreams, or Carl Jung calls it the collective unconscious. But whatever it is, the Greeks are essentially saying that the arts are all daughters of memory, and this is what I'm doing with this work. And I think that this is extremely true. It's like a compressed poetic idea that the artists resemble, or they put back together some kind of a learned experience or felt emotions, or a truthful recall of what it is to be alive, and therefore all artists are summoning this memory or memories. And that's, if you like, an accident of the beauty of human nature, I guess. People can come up with a myth, and is what I consider to be, frankly, a way of personifying complex abstract ideas.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned synesthesia. My listeners, you might not know that Caravassilis does have music color synesthesia, and I'm sure.
And taste and smell.
And taste and smell as well. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And
we should delve too much into that because we've already spoken in one of your shows about my synesthetic condition. But I just by chance have this very, very rare condition where I hear sounds and I see colors, and then I get taste and smell. So I'm trying to, and now I've devised several methods of doing this, bring this to my art and see how it connects to what I do when I'm in the creative process. And it's been amazing because it's just very, very different ways and angles from perceiving the thing that you do artistically. And one thing that's very simple is just listening to it. And another thing is just listening to it and getting all sorts of perception systems signaling, one to the other. Oh, there's something happening here. Let's see if we can keep it up by the way that the music is enveloping. It's a fascinating thing. Unfortunately, this is not something that I can reflect to my listeners because I can't make them synesthetes. Yeah. But it's just a fun part of the process.
Yeah, like it must affect what music you create, your creative process. I can't, I can't imagine. If you don't have it, you can't really imagine it. But very, very cool.
But for me, it just contributes to basically making the material that I'm working with richer and richer, and it works in terms of orchestration. And now, as I get older, I feel like it's starting to have an effect on overall forms and larger structures, which is fascinating. But we need a whole scientific team for this.
And then perhaps that's also why your works they tend to be like comprising so many different elements. It covers it's not just the music. It's the music. It's the literature. It's the theater.
Yes.
It's dance. They say that I guess an ideal performance of this work would involve dance and.
This is designed to. It's music plus spectacle, so it involves lighting and dancing and effects. And I didn't go as far as Scriabin to include sense, but I guess if the dramaturg wants to do that, they're more than welcome.
Yeah, it's really a brilliant, sumptuous, beautiful, seductive work, and we'll be hearing the whole piece as well on today's show. So this piece was interesting. It's recorded and produced, I guess, in Estonia. The most musical. It's a very small, very, very musical country in the capital.
Not this piece. No. This was recorded in New York at the famed Domenia Center. For classical music. And it sounds so good because we were lucky to have one of the world's leading sound engineers, Brian Losh, who came in with a helper and I don't know how many hundreds of microphones. And then once we had secured the funding, some colleagues of mine from New York said, well, there's no such ensemble that exists. So we have to kind of put together an ensemble, and we're going to need an amazing cellist to do your solos, and we're going to need a choir, and we're going to need a great violinist and a great pianist. And I said, okay, so, I'm on this graduates of the Curtis Institute and Juilliard School and the Met Orchestra and everything. Send me some samples of some people, and we'll see if they're a good fit. So I started receiving emails with, well, check this person out and this person out, and I had the luxury of selecting, handpicking basically, some of the, to my ears, most amazing players specifically for this piece. And then I started another process, this is why it took so long, of sending samples of the work to each one of them and asking them, okay, can you play this little snippet and just record it just on your phone, very, very simply, and send it back to me. And then I tailored the entire piece based on the way that these people communicate their sound via their instrument. And this makes the work and the recording of this work much more successful.
And I guess that's why this ensemble was made for this group. That's its name is the 10th Muse.
And Estonia and the Tallinna Kammer Orchestra. You're referring to the first piece of the second CD, which is now again Sapphic inspired, but now this is the poetry of Geoffrey Dubon. And Ariana Chris, who's actually the person who commissioned me for the very, very first Sapphic-inspired piece, which is now the last piece in the second CD. So we recorded with, this is, by the way, for people that don't realize, this is the famous orchestra that won the Grammy Award for disseminating and recording the music of Arvo Pärt. That has never recorded the music of a North American or Greek composer. So that's a first for me, and it's a huge, huge honor. They're still there, but they're on the second CD.
Yeah, okay, that's why I got confused. You were in Estonia, and part of it was recorded in Estonia. All right, and I'll have to hear. We'll have to listen to that those songs.
Maybe save it for another show.
On our show, because the first I started listening to the first song, and it's just breathtakingly beautiful. Just gorgeous.
Thank you.
So it'll be on a later show, yes, for sure. Because we should get to this work from Sappho's Lyre.
Absolutely.
It's about 70 minutes in length. I think maybe a little bit longer than that.
From Sappho's Lyre is exactly 60 minutes.
60 minutes, yeah. All right, 60 minutes, and it goes by so quickly because it's just breathtaking, and you can easily be transported 2,600 years ago. You're in an amphitheater on a Greek island, immersed in this music. Wonderful stuff, and you do have some big projects on the horizon as well. You told me about earlier. And so we're going to have you back and hear more of your music.
Let me do the next recording, and I'll be back with a new CD for you, David. This time...
Yeah, it's a symphony, right?
It's a large symphonic work and some others.
Well, yeah, I very much look forward to that. And the orchestral writing, because I know really well your piano music, but your orchestral music is a real treat. So I look forward to that.
Well, you know that my big dream is to find the funding and record all of my 4 piano concerti, which are now the only 4 pieces that I out of my catalog. My catalog used to be about 120 works, but last year I just cleaned it out and I dismissed about 40 works as juvenilia, and I've had everything performed but these 4 piano concertos, and I think that they're my greatest works. So I'm hoping that we'll start working on that project.
Well, is your music, like you see, is getting a lot of attention in Europe, it seems.
Yes.
And hopefully something will, a big recording of all 4 concerti. Would you be interested in performing them yourself, or you're looking for another?
Well, during the pandemic, I went back to the piano and I learned about 22 Scarlatti sonatas. Scarlatti, I just love Scarlatti, and I play them in my very own way. And I got my technique back in order, and everything is working well, and the fingers are moving. So maybe I can do number 2. Number 3, I probably need somebody like Marc-Andre Hamelin. He has 3 cadences in it, and I don't know that I have the physical stamina to go through it. But I do trust that it's very good music because I put all my heart in it. So I am certain that eventually it will find an audience, and it would find the right pianist and the right orchestra. I'm definite about that.
Yeah, well, so a lot of things to look forward to. Hopefully you'll get all of them recorded or performed.
Well, while I'm alive.
Yeah. One last thing, because you're talking about being a performer. On the recording, you are a conductor for
not only that, but actually the pre-recorded movements in the second part from Sappho's Lyre, they include my voice.
Yes.
I'm the cantor, actually, in the electronic movements. And in one movement that is also pre-recorded, so the pianist won't need to learn the score for this, because the lights come off and then the electronic music starts, and it's 16 loudspeakers in the concert hall. So you hear it's no longer a stereo effect, it's a surround effect. And since I don't need to write a score down for the pianist, I said, okay, let me just do it in the studio. I know how it goes. And so I'm the conductor, the composer. I sing in it, and I play a little bit of piano in it.
Yeah, wow. So yes,
Yeah.
so our hopefully listeners are well primed now, and like say, just get comfortable, turn up the radio, and be prepared to just be transported to ancient Greece, courtesy of Constantine Caravassilis. Thank you so much. Always
Absolutely elated to be joining your show again, and thank you so much for your time and for putting my music out there. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. So here is Constantine Caravassilis, his wonderful, wonderful cantata from Sappho's Lyre on CKCU 93.1. And just wow, just again, last week as well, two weeks in a row. All I can really say is just wow, 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 wow. That was from Sappho's Lyre, from Constantine Caravassilis. Just half of these new recordings that came out. It's a double CD, and that's the big piece, the big cantata in two parts, setting poems, the two only surviving complete poems of Sappho, that great ancient classical Greek poet from the 6th century Greece and ancient Greece. And the first poem is a hymn to Aphrodite, and the second, equal to the gods, he appears to me. And just exquisite piece of music. It features Liana Guberman-Chris, Carla Jablonski, and Daniel Moody, the soloist, with the 10th Muse Ensemble. And this was a bespoke ensemble created for this recording, as Constantine mentioned. 10th Muse, and again, this referring to the 9 muses of Greek mythology. And wow, it's in 17 movements, and I've been talking with Constantine here while listening to this piece again, and during the show, and he just mentioned that apotheosis, the second last movement, which of course so important to Greek tragedy and drama. It's just the solo violin, it ascends, and then it's taken over by the countertenor. It's joined by the chorus. It's just a spectacular, beautiful moment. And countertenors I just mentioned to me, I think countertenors are very, very cool. And he says here that I was watching a masterclass with him at Carnegie Hall and spot him, and I called the financing person in New York City and said, I don't care what you do, he needs to be in my piece. And he was very hesitant at first. Then I sent him some music, and he said, oh my God, yes, Constantine. And I'm glad he did, because that's spectacular. Of course, as the apotheosis, it should be a spectacular moment in this wonderful piece of music. So I do hope you enjoyed it today, and we'll certainly hear it again live. And there are 3 other works on this release, all with with poetry, Sapphic-inspired poetry. And we're going to hear some of it on future shows, of course, especially the songs set with orchestra, set to the poems, the Sapphic-inspired poems of Jeffrey Dubin. Just gorgeous songs. So if you did enjoy this, you certainly enjoy that on later shows.
93.1.